Hello everyone and welcome to the first semi-final here at Pro Tour Journey into Nix. Our journey is almost over. 3 matches remain. Who will be the champion? Will it be one of these two? Patrick Chapin, the innovator. There you see him, patiently waiting to begin his semi-final campaign against this man, Josh Utter-Leyton from the Channel Fireball Uber team of doom. Who is going to get it done? Brian David Marshall.
Well, you know what? I mean, this is the 5th Pro Tour top 8 for both of these players. But for Patrick, it's actually technically his 7th Pro Tour top 8 because he has a juniors top 8 and he has a vintage Pro Tour top 8. So I'm going to give him the edge on experience here, and I'm going to say Patrick Chapin's going to take this. Luis, what do you think?
I'm going to go with Josh. I think it's a very close matchup. Hey, I work with Patrick. I see him all the time. We are good friends as well. So that's not just because I'm biased towards Josh, which I am a tiny bit. But I think the fact that Josh has 4 main deck Ashioks is a pretty big deal in this matchup.
So we are away with quite a lot of scry action, and that is going to happen a lot as we see Patrick Chapin send his away. He passes the turn. Here's turn number 2 of the semi-finals for Josh. On the right of your screen, you're going to be able to see cards in hand for both our players. There we go, one of the real standout cards of the weekend. Sylvan Caryatid, Defender, Hexproof. Get that bonus mana into play. Here we go again for scry action for Chapin on turn 3.
And here we kind of see the sphere of resistance phenomenon that a lot of people have alluded to. All 3 of Patrick's lands came into play tapped this game. He's not able to play a 3-drop on turn 3.
Right. In fact, he's got a Fleecemane Lion in his hand that he's going to play, but it's going to come down on turn 2. And his deck kind of wants to go Fleecemane Lion into Brimaz, and that's a little worse when you put yourself on the draw on the play.
Exactly.
In fact, he's holding a Brimaz in hand.
Yeah, and Josh now has his selection of Planeswalkers. He can play Kiora, he can play Ashiok, he can play Courser of Krufix. And I think he leads with the Courser, so he doesn't have to worry about the Fleecemane Lion attacking his Planeswalkers. The Courser does stop the line.
So Thoughtseize revealed on top for Josh Utter-Leyton, so not only does he know that, we do, and of course, his opponent Patrick Chapin knows that. See whether that has impact as the game goes on. You see Patrick Chapin's hand there. Courser of Krufix at the front, Brimaz, King of Ereskos.
We've seen a lot of really the top names float to the top in this Pro Tour. And how much of that do you think, Luis, comes from all the extra information we've seen from all of these Coursers of Krufix?
I mean, it's a pretty big deal. I remember hearing about how John Finkel loved Wandering Eye back in Mercadian Masks draft. And, given the fact that now you have access to pretty much perfect information once their opponent's hand gets low, just because you see what they've drawn for the past 5 turns, it makes it a lot easier to play around what they have.
So a win in this Pro Tour is extra sweet.
Here comes Brimaz, King of Ereskos, a phenomenal card. We all knew it as soon as it came out that it was going to be great, and here it is shining massively in Block Constructed.
Josh is a little bottlenecked here. He hasn't hit a land off his Centaur Courser yet, a common theme for this top 8.
Yeah.
And he can cast one of his spells. His spells are all good. He's got, Ashiok, Kiora, Hero's Downfall, but he can only cast 1 per turn. And so here's where he'd want to pull ahead because he had the Sylvan Caryatid and Patrick didn't. But because he hasn't hit another land yet, even though he had the Caryatid, he's still not really taking advantage of it.
Right. Now, one of the key differences between this bug deck and, say, the Pantheon bug deck seems to be two lands. So do you think that the extra lands, do you feel like maybe, going back to do it differently, that there might have been extra lands in this deck?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things we're going to talk about, as we kind of do our recap of the event. I think, and I said this on the news desk earlier, the fact that this bug deck doesn't have a card like Sphinx's Revelation that really, lets you go off, lets you use, 7 or 10 lands to your advantage. I mean, Silence the Believers helps. That card is very good. Kind of led us towards playing less land. I think I wouldn't have been unhappy to play 25 maybe, but I am not sure yet that 26 is right. It very well could be. I mean, I'm not ruling it out.
I know Nassif said he would have played a 27th.
That I do not believe is correct.
So the Thoughtseize that Josh fired off, that got rid of Elspeth Sun's champion. You see that at the top left of your screen in Patrick Chapin's graveyard, but there's still plenty of stuff coming in. Here's Fleecemane Lion, Brimaz, and the token that comes along. It will be a double Courser of Krufix block in the face of Brimaz. And now Patrick Chapin, what does he have to do something about this? Believers have been silenced.
And that was a good draw for Patrick. I mean, he does. It lets him attack with Brimaz. It wasn't a blowout though. The Courser still survives the Brimaz, so right. You just traded a silence for a Courser, which Josh has 2 of, and you get a free 1 on token.
Sylvan Caryatid on top for Josh.
And not flipping lands is still really impacting Josh here.
We're gonna see maybe no Hero's Downfall on the Fleecemane while you can.
Yeah, this is one of the last opportunities you'll have to kill it before it becomes monstrous.
And when it does become monstrous, unfortunately, you are not getting to kill it ever.
He cast 2 Drowning Sorrows.
Well, our bug list doesn't have Drowning Sorrows main deck, so...
You're not going to kill it ever.
That would be tough.
You could cast 2 Burning Wishes.
I suppose that's true.
I refer the Honorable Gentleman.
So,
right.
So, Silence of Believers takes out the Courser, and Brimaz gets in for 5.
So the silence was still good there. I mean, you know Josh isn't drawing a land next turn. You're putting Josh on the back foot, but a pair of Caryatids coming out here could actually do a decent job of making sure that Josh doesn't take a ton of damage.
And it is, for those of you who are joining us late in the weekend, it is when you see all this toughness on the board, you can see why we don't have lots of aggro decks in the top 8.
Yeah, I think there's 2 main factors. One is that the 2-color aggro deck's mana was really bad, as noted with Stanislav Sivka's deck. They even said themselves that their mana was bad, and the 1-color aggro decks don't have Mutavault, so that puts a pretty restrictive set of parameters on aggro.
Josh has fallen to 6 here. He's going to need to deal with that Brimaz pretty soon, although I guess he... Courser. Another Brimaz.
It's nice knowing that Patrick isn't drawing anything next turn, and Patrick can't, in fact, play a second Courser this turn. So even though Josh is well behind, he's certainly not out of it.
Josh untaps. 4 cards to work with. There you see the reigning player of the year, let's not forget. A man who, if he wins these next 2 matches, will be right in the thick of the player of the year race.
Any thought towards Kiora here? Maybe bubbling the Brimaz?
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely one of Josh's decent plays. It's a little awkward that you have to tap on your characters to play Kiora, because even though Josh has drawn a land here, it still has, forest, black-green temple. But if you do that, you can Kiora the Brimaz, you can block Courser 2 of the tokens, and 2 tokens get through, either to you or Kiora. And that's not terrible. I don't think Josh can afford to Ashiok Patrick's Brimaz as much as he would like to. I don't think that he's got the time for that.
So we see Kiora, the Crashing Wave.
So he decides to draw an extra card.
So Josh is just hoping to, I mean, he's behind enough that he's hoping to just draw something good right off the top. Like it is a little desperate. He's hoping to draw Hero's Downfall perhaps, because he would have had exactly enough mana to block Downfall Brimaz. The fact that he didn't means it's going to be a little tough.
What's on top for Chapin? There you see it.
So still no gas coming up for Chapin.
No, but now you're going to have to, you can like block a Courser and chump Brimaz and take 4. And you could, Patrick also has the option of killing Kiora pretty easily. So I think Josh is in trouble. I mean, he was already in trouble, and that last turn didn't really help matters.
Josh is holding a Prognostic Sphinx, a Kiora, and an Ashiok. Three of the power spells in the deck.
Yeah, they're all very powerful. They all also cost blue mana, and he's got a Bayou
he's got
and 3
tap
forests.
A blocker to do it.
Yeah, so I think, and the fact that Josh doesn't have an easy way to get rid of all the tokens means that he's, Brimaz is kind of snowballing here. Josh is going to be in trouble, I think, no matter what happens.
trying to figure out who's attacking who.
Yeah, and this is a really tricky part because when you have multiple blockers, if you send too few at the Planeswalker, you can just block it. If you send too much, you end up overkilling it. So Patrick wants to make sure he pressures Kiora adequately while still not throwing away damage.
So three tokens, is that what you would send?
Kiora, everything else is attacking you.
Oh.
1 token at Kiora, everything else at you.
So Josh could keep Kiora alive. He could block Caryatid on that cat and then chump Brimaz and go to 1. Alternately, he can block the 2 3-power, Brimaz and Corsair, the 3-power and 2-power creature, and then he could end up going to 4, or he can do 3, or he can do what he did here, let Kiora die, but keep both of his Caryatids alive.
So Josh in deep trouble here in game 1 against Patrick Chapin, as Chapin will add Corsair of Krufix to the board. Josh at precisely 1 life. Draws for the turn.
Draws a hero's downfall.
That's the hero's downfall he was looking for last turn.
Yep.
The ironic hero's downfall.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a bit much for Josh here. And Patrick has 7 creatures in play, and they're all lethal, and if Brimaz attacks, that adds an 8th.
Well, that was cheery.
Well, Mrs. Lincoln, but how was the play?
Yeah, Josh is a double John and Sorrow away from stabilizing here. Of course, that would also kill all 3 of his Caryatids.
So we see Kiora the Crashing Wave coming back again. Part 2.
Bubbles Brimaz.
Has more mana available than it looks simply by looking at his land row. He doesn't just have 1 mana off his forest because of the Caryatids.
Yeah.
But in we go. And Patrick Chapin takes a 1-0 lead in the best of 3 over Joshua Utter-Leyton here in the semi-finals of Pro Tour Journey into Nyx. That all seemed pretty straightforward, Luis, that game.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of the turning point there was when Josh missed, land drops in the middle of the game,
right,
which, hopefully isn't a recurring theme here, but it's already happened twice. And had he not, and Josh was able to play, say, Thoughtseize plus Ashiok, or Thoughtseize plus Kiora, or Hero's Downfall plus Ashiok
right,
in the same turn, then I think Josh would have actually pulled ahead because Patrick's draw wasn't super fast.
Right.
But since Josh wasn't able to do that, and Patrick had a Brimaz unopposed, Patrick just pulled ahead too far.
There was a window where he could have put down a Planeswalker, had some opportunity to build it up before Patrick got his offense mounted.
Yeah, I mean, Josh's easiest win condition, especially since Patrick didn't draw Hero's Downfall that game, is to play an early Planeswalker and protect it. And Josh was just 1 step behind. Fleece Mainline actually played a really big part in that. If Patrick didn't have a Fleece Mainline on turn 3, Josh may have been able to just drop a Kiora out that turn.
Right.
And because Patrick was able to have a Fleece Mainline in play and threaten attacking Planeswalkers, Josh wasn't able to just play one.
Right. And to be fair, that's a big part of why Patrick likes this deck, is that he's able to exert some early pressure, and he really does like the ability for him to straddle aggro and control here, and to be sort of come up against the control deck and put them under the gun.
Yeah, and I think one of the really powerful things about his deck is that because he's aggressive, he gets to play Mana Confluence ×4.
All right, well, as you can see on screen, the players are busy sideboarding. Why don't we take a look at the sideboards? We'll begin with the leader, Patrick Chapin. He is 1-0 up. He needs to win 1 out of the next 2. Luis, tell us, what of this lot can help him achieve his goal of making it to the final?
As we saw against Jamie Park in the quarterfinals, Patrick's going to bring in the more aggressive cards. He wants God's Willing and Boon Satyrs, Arbor Colossus, and presumably Thoughtseize. Part of it is that just by having 1 God's Willing in his deck, and Josh knows about it, Jamie knew about it, that forces the bug deck to play all their spells on sorcery speed when Patrick's tapped out, even if you haven't drawn the God's Willing. So that messes up their game plan a little. And when your opponent's trying to protect Planeswalkers, attacking their Planeswalker, them trying to kill it, and you casting God's Willing is huge.
Do you really have to play around 1? Do you not just go, you had 1, you should have had 4. I'm going to ignore it completely.
And sometimes you do. Sometimes if it's going to cost you too much, like if you want to block with some Caryatids, you won't tap them main phase to Hero's Downfall. You'll block then Hero's Downfall and hope they don't have it. But just the threat of having 1 will alter what lines of play Josh makes. The other big thing is Boon Satyr. Since now, Josh can't just block with his Prognostic Sphinxes and not fear a Boon Satyr.
Right.
Boon Satyr actually introduces a whole new element there.
All right.
Also, just for a moment here, we talked about the stack being designed Chapin's version that's being designed, you could see Nassif's fingerprints all over this sideboard. 10 cards, lots of ones. You know, it feels very Nassif-y to me.
All right. On the other side, I think imagine it will feel very Josh Utter-Leyton like. Let's take a look at his sideboard.
Oh,
there
also
you
10.
see it. Lots of ones. Again, Luis, what does Josh have to do here?
This is a kind of interesting matchup to sideboard against because you do kind of want some of the anti-controllish cards like, you know, Read the Bones or we saw Jamie P bring in Psychic Intrusion. But, you know, I think Josh's conclusion was after watching him playtest and talking to him that he's going to be behind enough in the games that he's going to lose that a card like Psychic Intrusion is not really what he's actually looking for. Silence the Believers, on the other hand, is great. And Bile Blight can kill Fleecemane Lion, which is pretty important, as well as clearing out Elspeth tokens or even Brimaz tokens if you need to. But I don't think you want to bias too hard against, like you're playing a control deck. Even though Patrick's playing a deck with Read the Bones and Elspeths and Coursers and Caryatids, if you side in too many cards for the slow game, Fleecemane Lion and Brimaz will come after you.
So do you see Drowning Sorrow coming in at all? I mean, even though we saw him get overrun by tokens.
I don't think so. I think Bile Blight's going to serve that purpose while also just killing Fleecemane Lion on turn 2.
Setting aside the fact that Josh is 1-0 down, so just imagining that this is a clean slate, once they've boarded, who's favored and why?
I actually don't think that the matchup changes that much after board. Though if I had to give an edge to anyone, it would be Patrick. He's bringing in cards that really change a lot of plays Josh wants to make, like blocking Fleecemane Lion with Prognostic Sphinx is a really big one. Now that Boon Satyr's in the picture, that just becomes much worse. So I think Patrick does get better after board.
Yet more happy news for Josh Utter-Leyton then,
Yes.
by the sound of things, BDM.
But you're going to stand by your Josh Utter-Leyton pick for this match? He's going to find a way out?
Well, I mean, this match is close enough that any player who's up a game is just going to be hugely favored to win. So if you're letting me switch picks, I'll go ahead and pick Patrick. But
I'm not letting you switch picks. I'm just asking if you wanted to.
But I'll still go with Josh. He's on the play. He can have a turn 3 Ashiok, and sometimes that's just going to be unanswerable.
So that's what we're gearing up for. Game 2 of the semi-final. Remember that Josh Utter-Leyton is the reigning player of the year. 30 pro points goes to the winner of this Pro Tour. We have seen that Reed Duke, by making the top 8, he lost in the quarterfinals, but just by making it to the top 8, he will become the new world #1 when the rankings come out later this week, overtaking Jeremy Desani, who couldn't repeat his stellar first 2 Pro Tour performances this season. So now we see whether Josh can get himself one stage closer to back-to-back Pro Tour Player of the Year titles. So, Chapin there, looking at his grip, 1-0 up.
I'll keep.
Keep in mind, Rich, the winner of this tournament not only is going to be in the mix of the Player of the Year race, but is also going to earn a seat at the World Championship. And when we were talking to Chapin yesterday, Patrick said, this is my PTQ. He's like, I need to win 3 rounds to qualify for the World Championship. We're underway here.
We are, and it's a turn 1 Thoughtseize from Josh Utter-Leyton, so now he will see what we will be able to see as well. There's double Fleecemane Lion there, you see, Sylvan Caryatid, Brimaz King of Ereskos, Heroes Downfalls aplenty, and a land. It's a scry land, but it is 1 land.
Yeah, and that's that's one of the hands that you do end up keeping more in this format. When you're on the draw with a scry land, keeping 1 landers becomes a little more appealing.
Right, you have 3 shots to get that second land.
Yeah, and there's one of the problems Patrick has here is that the land he kept does not have any green mana symbols on it anymore. So he could very easily miss. That just rules out a large number of lands that would otherwise be live. So this is definitely a gambler's keep here.
Which card do you take?
I think it's appealing to take the Caryatid because you can, that is a mana source if Patrick draws a land. But because of the 2 Fleecemane Lions, if Patrick draws a green source, he can still just go Fleecemane Lion into Fleecemane Lion. So I think there's actually a decent argument for taking Brimaz, maybe even a Hero's Downfall. It's really going to depend more on how Josh sees his game plan going.
He took the Fleecemane Lion. So maybe feels like he has a hand that can deal with one of those Fleecemane Lions, but not 2.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense.
So Chapin will look off scry.
That was not a land.
A bold prediction.
Yes, I'm going to go out on a limb.
And now Josh also kept a hand that doesn't have a way to cast any more spells. He's got Swamp, Caryatid, and non-green lands in his hand. He's got another Swamp.
Second Brimaz.
So now do you consider
We
changing it up for the Caryatid?
Well, because of the second Brimaz, I could definitely see that, especially since Josh has a Hero's Downfall in hand to maybe kill the Fleecemane line. We could easily see a game where no player casts spells for the next 4 turns here. This is going to be a pretty big draw step for both of them.
So Josh
He
says,
does take the Caryatid.
yes,
I like that.
yeah,
Gangster
let's
right
slow everything down.
Patrick says that's gangster right there.
All right. Your Pro Tour's on the line. Is your top card a land?
Yeah, let's not forget that part of the reason Chapin's here is because of that, and there, well,
Josh is like, oh, I guess I knew what you drew.
Now
So-
it's Josh's turn.
so,
Oh.
yuck. All right, Chapin draws another land.
And this is not a surprise to either player
Oh,
at
boy.
this point. You can hear the crowd roar.
So 1, 2, 3. Here's Brimaz, and this is
Probably don't mind the crowd
huge.
giving away your draw step at these last 2 songs, do you? Your go.
Your go, says Chapin. Oh my word. And Josh is, yeah, I mean, Josh is smiling, but you've got to feel terrible here. He's passed again. Oh boy. Patrick Chapin, boys and girls, in his 5th Pro Tour top 8, is hammering down against a defenseless Josh Utter-Leyton. He draws, I think we're moments away from a handshake. There it is.
Wow.
Patrick Chapin by 2-0 is into the final of Pro Tour journey into Nix. His dream of making the World Championship is still alive, and Josh Utter-Leyton, the Player of the Year, is done in the semi-finals.
Worth noting, his dream is to win the World Championship.
Oh,
It is not to make the World Championship. It is to win it. This is just day 3 of a 7-day tournament that he's playing in right now.
Yep, Tuesday and Wednesday in Nice, then a day off for good behavior, watch some teams from countries that you're not on, and then pop back on Sunday, win the whole thing.
Right.
Although, let's be honest, if he wins here, maybe he's going to be busy on Friday and Saturday of Worlds
Right.
Week as the captain of the
Very
US
well could
national
happen.
team.
Yeah, he throws himself right into that mix.
Well, that was extraordinary and brutal.
Yeah, both players kept, difficult hands.
They both needed to draw a land to get there, and Patrick had more looks, and then he ended up hitting
Right.
it first.
Wow. That was almost more brutal than the Reed Duke second game against Ishikawa, which just, again, savaged out of the gate.
Again, let's not miss. A top 4 for Josh.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's still
he's still
awesome.
buying you guys dinner tonight, right?
To repeat for last night? I don't know.
So, a great finish for Josh Utter-Leyton. The 5th Pro Tour top 8 of his career. 7 years on the Pro Tour for him, right? I think he's eligible for the Pro Tour Hall of Fame in 2017.
Yep, I believe so.
So, just an incredible run.
Yeah, it seems absolutely certain he'll get in, but a man who's already there is on the floor waiting to talk with our own Rashad Miller. Here's Patrick Chapin.
Thanks, Rich. Rashad Miller down in the feature match area with Hall of Famer Patrick Chapin. So, you look at your opening hand. 1 land keep, but on the draw, and it's a scry land. What's going through your head?
Gerard Fabiano's voice.
And what's he saying?
Snap keep. Now, in a spot like that, when you have a scry land and you're on the draw, I've got 3 looks to try to find a land. And if I get 1 land in the first 3 cards, that's a very, very good hand. It even has a Sylvan Caryatid. I mean, that's a fantastic hand if I get 1 land in 3. And even if I get 1 land in 4, I've got chances as long as he doesn't have a Planeswalker. So that matchup ends up being so so attrition based anyway. I just wanted to have as many tools to work with as possible, and you kind of got to get lucky.
Well, a little bit of magic takes a little bit of luck. Now, in the other semifinals, we have Namsoon Wak versus Yuki Ichikawa. Who do you want to play?
Both would be real challenging. I mean, going into this tournament out of the mainstream decks, Naya was the one that I least wanted to play. I mean, it's very even-ish, but it's a really hard matchup, and sometimes there's just nothing you can do. So that's a real challenging one. And then Song actually beat me in the Swiss, so both of them are going to be very, very challenging opponents. But either one, I guess I guess I'd rather play against the Naya, if only because I've got more practice against it.
All right, well, that's Patrick Chapin, our first finalist. We're going to send it back to the booth.
All right, thank you very much, Rashad Miller. Thanks very much to Patrick Chapin. Yeah, he's just happy to be there. Doesn't care who he's going to play, really, let's be honest.
No.
So, 1 down, 1 to go. We're going to send it back to the news desk. We'll see you for semi-final 2, just a few minutes from now. Back to the desk.
And welcome back to the news desk. Randy Buehler down there with Zach Hill, Marshall Sutcliffe in this seat over here. And fellas, yikes. We heard some yelps from the crowd as we were watching, and it was for good reason. A little bit of the run goods never hurt.
Yeah, no, I think, the picture in the dictionary under miser may need to change to Chapin with a little, here we go, smirk, right?
It's always nice to run good, and he did. Now, we've got another semifinal match upcoming here, though. We're not done yet. We're going to be bringing you that. Of course, we're going to hit up the finals after that. But let's take a look at our semifinal match that we have left. We have Nam Sung Wook versus Yuki Ichikawa. So let's take a look at our first player here, and we will give you guys an idea of who we're going to be seeing in the semifinals and also what kind of a deck they're playing. All right, so here's Nam Sung Wook from South Korea, 31 years old. We talked about him a few minutes ago, Randy. Relative newcomer to the high-level Magic scene, but has made quite a splash.
Oh yeah, he's been on quite the heater. He's got only the 4 Pro Tours played, but look, since we were in Valencia, he's won a Grand Prix, he top-8'd another Grand Prix, and now here he is in the semifinals of a Pro Tour.
Right.
That's all since the last PT.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic showing here for Nam Sung Wook.
Yeah, he's been on a crazy tear, and he has come to the table with an extremely powerful deck. We saw him take a riff on the Constellation deck that we've seen a lot of players play, opting instead of, to go the full route with Doomrake Giant. He's got 4 copies of Thoughtseize in the main deck, more of a mid-range deck, taking advantage of the synergies inherent in Eidolon of Blossoms, able to rip the control deck's hands apart with Thoughtseize Brain Maggot. May have quietly the best deck at the tournament today.
All right, why don't we take a look at how Nam got here. We'll go deep into the deck in just a few minutes here. Pretty interesting win-losses there. We looked at it a little earlier today, but you'll notice win-loss, win-loss. He's 2-2 after 4 rounds at the Pro Tour, Randy. You can't feel fantastic about your chances of top-8ing at 2-2, but look at his day 2.
Oh yeah.
Win, draw.
Well, it came in at 5-3. That's what you got to do. Yeah. You want to get to 5-3 and then run the table. That is precisely what he did.
All right, so fantastic run there for Nam. So why don't we take a look at our other player. This is Yuki Ichikawa. He's from Japan and 26 years old. Also, not a ton of Pro Tour experience here. He's only played in 2.
Yeah, both of these guys are actually Magic Online players. Big time, tons of reps Magic Online players. Yuki Ichikawa is a famous streamer, actually, in Japan. He plays on Nico Nico all the time. And so, people in Japan know who this guy is. He's kind of a celebrity, even with, only playing in his 3rd Pro Tour. And it's funny, we looked at this side of the bracket, and I think a lot of us were thinking, ooh, Magic Online superstar, joined up with a super team, 1st Pro Tour top 8, let's see him make a run. Well, Reed Duke may have lost.
Yeah, that sounds like a familiar story.
We got that story in the semifinals. Nam Sung Wook is actually leading the Constructed Player of the Year race on Magic Online as NSW. So I see this battle as the fight to see who deserves the crown of the Asian Reed Duke.
I love it. Yeah, we're going to have to keep an eye on it. Let's take a look at how Yuki got here. See if he had as rough as a road as Nam did.
Oh, rougher.
2-1 his first draft, not too bad, but then picked up immediately 2 losses. And again, 5-3 to end the day. Win, and then a draw at the end. So incredible runs by both of these players. They haven't lost a match in, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 11, 12, 13 now. 12 in a row. So not a bad run. I mean, for those of us that play a lot on Magic Online where you can play match after match after match, winning 13 in a row doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I mean, and I can't imagine being able to maintain your focus after starting out 2-3 and rattling off so many wins against the caliber of players that Yuki Ichikawa was up against.
Yeah, can we take a look at the deck list here, Randy? Talk to us about what Yuki's playing and what are the key cards that the viewers can look for to get him to the winner's circle?
Yeah, we've called this deck Red-Green Elspeth, and it's probably not a surprise. This is the deck that's been doing the best on Magic Online. Right, in Magic Online, the block hasn't been legal there for very long, but you know what? You take the green core, Sylvan Carrier added, Courser of Crew Fix, that's great. Well, there's a lot of Constellation running around, like the Constellation deck that Namsoong Wook is on, so that makes Polish Crusher really good, and Destructive Revelry really good as well. So red-green base, but then, you know what? With the Temples and the Caryatid, you get to pick another color. You get to add whichever other one color you want to add. So he went with Elspeth, most powerful card in the format. His deck is just, it's not a ton of synergy, but it is a collection of, most of the best cards in the format.
A lot of big stuff in there, too. It looks like he's going to be powering out some really, really tough threats. Zach, why don't we take a look at Namsoong Wook's deck list here? You were mentioning earlier, giving us an idea of what he was trying to do with the Constellation effects. What are the key cards for his list?
Yes, so one of the things you're definitely focusing on, if you're looking at Nam's deck, are the 4 copies of Eidolon of Blossoms. That's a 2/2 for 4, draws a card when it enters the battlefield. Whenever you play an enchantment, draws you another card. We have all these other cards that you'd be playing anyway because they're very good, like Brain Maggot, Herald of Torment, Banishing Light. Those are great cards that we see in a lot of different decks. When they draw you an additional card whenever you cast them, that is able to overwhelm your opponent very quickly with the card advantage. The other thing that I want to emphasize is that, as we saw in the previous round, one of the ways that people beat you, they're like, oh, you have a lot of enchantments. I'm going to board in 4 Destructive Revelry, Unravel the Ether, got Polish Crusher, etc. But what Nam does is actually bring in 4 Fleecemane Lion, 3 Reaper of the Wilds.
Interesting.
Big creatures that you're not going to be able to target with
Those aren't
disenchant
big
effects.
creatures. Have you seen the things that Ichikawa's playing? He's got Pelucranos. Yeah, I mentioned the 4 Polish Crushers, but that's like the beginning of the curve. He goes Stormbreath Dragon and 3 different Planeswalkers. Yeah, Ichikawa's deck is the timmiest.
It is
you
the
can bring your
timmiest.
creatures in. I got the timmiest.
That
deck
actually,
over
that's
here.
something I wanted to ask about. A lot of these control mirrors that we've seen, these bug decks, have been really attrition based, right? It's about who can get further ahead on cards after the dust settles on kill your thing, thought sees you, and everybody kind of goes back and forth forever. Is that how this is going to play out, Randy? I mean, it looks like we might have a little bit more of an over-the-top deck in your hands there.
Yeah, Ichikawa's not very good at killing things. I mean, these decks, he doesn't have black mana. I mean, that's really the way you get these attrition matchups is, silence the believers. Oh, if I get to 7, I can kill 2 things. Maybe I'll just wait and stall. I'll get to 10 and I'll kill 3 things. Like, the black decks in the format are very good at playing that attrition game. The red-green Elspeth deck, he's going over the top. I mean, he's, I guess, what passes for a beatdown deck at this point in the tournament?
Like a ramp fatty deck,
Yeah,
basically?
it's a ramp fatty deck. That's absolutely correct.
Okay, now how does his opponent deal with that? I mean, does he have enough answers to deal with all the threats that he can put out?
Well, you know what? I think he does. I mean, and I would give Nam the edge in this matchup. You've got card drawing with Eidolon of Blossoms. You've got 4 copies of Hero's Downfall, 3 copies after sideboard of Silence the Believers, and you're drawing enough cards to make sure that you have the mana to be able to capitalize on those spells. Now, on the other hand, Ichikawa does have, he's got Chain to the Rocks, he's got Banishing Light, so Ichikawa can definitely remove some threats. But I think Nam's card advantage engine, his ability to attack the hand, and his ability to cast hard removal spells is going to give him the edge in this matchup.
Randy, one thing you'll notice with these ramp decks is that they'll have some percentage of ramp spells in their hand, and then, of course, the big payoff cards. If those get stripped away, how bad is it for Ichikawa?
I mean, it certainly can be bad, but Ichikawa, his deck is really designed to feast on the aggro decks. Right, decks like this red-green Elspeth deck are the reason you don't see mono-black aggro. You don't see the monocolor heroic decks. Sifka managed to sneak in but get quickly dispatched on Sunday. That's who the red-green ramp, ramp fatties has always kind of preyed on the quick creature decks. So you're right, if the control deck shows up and says, okay, you can keep your land and your ramp, but I'll take the one business spell out of your hand, that can be a problem. Not if Ichikawa draws like he drew against Reed Duke, though.
Okay, do you agree with Zach that Nam has the edge here?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Good. All right. It looks like they're ready to go right now for our second semifinal match here from Pro Tour. Journey into Nyx. Let's send down to Rich Hagen, BDM, and LSV in the booth.